Now, let's address the elephant in the room first. The general perception is that the only way of discussing Woodridge and Logan Central is in terms of crime and violence. But I know a better story, a much more interesting one, and it begins in the 1870s. Much of, and probably all of current Woodridge was originally a timber reserve. A timber reserve is literally just a place set aside for logging. And the timber reserve here at Woodridge was established in the 1870s to log these different types of trees. The first recorded European to live in the Woodridge area was a fellow by the name of Herman Muller. His occupation was clock and watch repairer. He bought 30 acres here and built a cottage. I can't imagine he would have got too much business back then. Won't come off. YouTubers. In 1885, the railway line came through here and then kept going. No station was built here because no one was living here apart from Herman. The closest station to the north was Currabee Station, originally known as Spring Creek Station, and the closest station to the south was Kingston.
In 1888, a small township was surveyed in the area, and it was called Baran. The streets of Bruce, Victoria and North indicate the location of this planned township. The name Baran comes from the local indigenous word burren, meaning wind. However, this is disputed. Despite a few sales, the township never eventuated, and even by 1943, many of these blocks were still for sale, at £5 each.
At some point just before World War I, a fellow by the name of Dugald Graham showed up here, and he opened a timber mill.
In 1913, he opened Graham's Timber Siding, a small freight train station where Woodridge train station is now, to get his timber shipped out to Brisbane. Though the government built it, he had to pay for it. And he came up with various names for the siding, including Grahamvale, Craigburn, Lawn and Devar, the latter which is named after a lighthouse in Western Scotland, and it stuck for a little while. The government changed the name to 15 Miles Siding for no better reason that the siding was 15 miles from the Brisbane General Post Office.
Dugald didn't hang around too long here. In 1913, he sold his interests to Octavius Stubbs. And with the station here, though it was just a siding, passengers would actually stand here and flag down trains trying to get a lift, either up to Brisbane or down to Southport.
By 1914, there were 4 timber mills, one of which was on Railway Parade. Stubbs's timber mill was located roughly where Stubbs Road meets Railway Parade.
Stubbs had greater ambitions for the area, and in 1914, along what we now call Garfield Road, he set up what he called the Woodridge Estate. He sold off 1 acre blocks at £170 each. Why did he call it Woodridge Estate? It's pretty straightforward. Wood, because this was a timber getting area, wood was plentiful, and ridge, because the train line and the early settlement were up there on the ridge, running basically north-south. So the wooded ridge, Woodridge. By 1916, there were a few houses going up around here. There was a railway siding and some timber mills, and it was decided that what the area really needed was a progress hall. I just happen to have one here right behind me. You see, a progress hall is very, very important to establishing communities like this. It was a place where they could start to get people working together, help to get the kids educated, attract business and people to the area, look at getting things like sanitation and just overall development. Now, this is not the original one. This dates from 1953. The first one was built in 1916 and was a much smaller building. It was severely damaged by a cyclone in 1936. I've never actually been inside this building, this bright blue building, Woodridge, Kingston and Logan Central Progress Hall. I'll go in and see if I can have a peek. Hello. Is it all right just to come in and have a little look? I've never been here before. Thank you very much. I'm in. And that's the ladies. And I'm looking for the gents. Oh, here we go. Here we go. All right. You'll have to excuse me for the moment. Really appreciate it. Bye-bye. Cool. That was awesome.
In 1917, the train station was officially upgraded to be a passenger station, and it was the Woodridge Progress Association that successfully lobbied the government to get the station built for passenger use. By the way, Woodridge is the highest station on the Brisbane Southport Railway. I mean in terms of elevation.
And this little house I'm coming up to now used to be the station master's cottage. The first dedicated post office to open here in Woodridge was here at 34 Railway Parade. The original building is gone. These ones date probably from the 50s or 60s. By 1924, the Progress Hall was being used. Masked lapwings, they're the noisiest birds when you're trying to record to camera. By 1924, the Progress Hall was being used as a provisional school, and that lasted until 1932 when the students were moved over to the newly opened Woodridge State School. They had another name for... That's a magpie. It's not magpie season yet, is it? No. It was also in 1924 that the name Woodridge became official. It was decided upon by the Postmasters General Department. The alternate name they were looking at was Woodridge Park, which I thought was a lovely name, but anyway, it became just Woodridge.
The timber industry eventually gave way to poultry farming, and this occurred because of the introduction of natural gas being piped to people's homes, which means they didn't have to burn wood. In 1938, electricity came to the area, and this was just before the onset of World War II.
Logan Gardens. Beautiful trees here. And where I'm standing right now, back in 1942, this was the site of a grass runway. This was built for the extra traffic coming from Archerfield Airport. Unfortunately, it was built on sloping ground. You can see here, the land slopes away that way. So it was designated not a very good idea to build it here. It was downgraded to an emergency landing strip only. So the airstrip came right through here and down that way there. It was determined that it was just going to be an emergency runway. There's people yelling behind me. Even in 1946, it was becoming overgrown and largely forgotten. I think we've run out of famous people for the moment. Where I'm standing here at 22 Railway Parade, back in 1945, this was the site of the second post office to be built in Woodridge. I don't know if this building here is actually it, or if it was just in that empty yard just over there. But anyway, the second post office was here. Now this is really interesting. Just up ahead is Muller Road. I was saying earlier that the first European to live here in the Woodridge area was Herman Muller, but there's no information about him. And yet there's Muller Road. I wonder if his house was along here somewhere. Might have to door knock. Oh, that's a nice house. Herman.
In 1963, reticulated water began to be connected to the area. It was also in this year that Woodridge train station was updated at a cost of £55,000. And it was the most modern station outside of the city. In 1968, another little station was built here on the B&E line, just up from Woodridge train station.
It was called Baran Halt. Now, a halt is really just a very small little station, probably infrequently used. Later in 1968, it was upgraded to a proper station and became known as Trinder Park Station.
But this was the 1960s, and something momentous was beginning that would forever change the face of Woodridge: public housing. By 1969, there were 472 Housing Commission homes built in Woodridge. By 1977, that number had jumped to 1,547. Why Woodridge, though? Several factors are involved. The land was relatively cheap, there was a railway station there, the wider area was seen as a growth region, and water and electricity had already been connected. The 1970s saw the establishment of much-needed services and amenities. In 1972, Woodridge State High School opened with 217 students. And in 1978, Woodridge Plaza opened. Amongst the entertainment that day was singer John English. And then in 1981, the Logan City Council Administration Building was opened on Wembley Road.
It was on the morning of the 23rd of March 1985 that two suburban passenger trains collided head-on. Right here, just north of Trinder Park train station, a train driver and one passenger were killed, and 31 other passengers were injured. At the time, there was only one train track coming through here. They hadn't yet upgraded it to 2 tracks.
Good evening. 2 people have been killed in one of the worst rail disasters in Queensland's history. 2 suburban electric trains collided head-on just north of Woodridge.
6:38 this morning, and this was the tragic sight at Woodridge. The unimaginable. 2 trains sandwiched together after a head-on collision. The city-bound train had only just pulled out of Trinder Park Station. As it turned into the first bend, it met the southbound train head-on.
In 1985, a new suburb was proposed, and this was Logan Central, originally only encompassing the council building and some adjoining council land. It became a suburb in 1986 and eventually swallowed up considerable parts of Woodridge. Despite these changes, the western boundary of Woodridge is still the same as the western boundary of the Timber Reserve from way back in the 1870s. In 1991, a time capsule was buried outside the Coles supermarket at Woodridge Plaza. Inside was some artwork by local students, some 1 and 2 cent coins, which were soon to become defunct, and some Bart Simpson merchandise.
Now right here, this is the old police station. It was shut down in 1992, and in 1993, Radio 101 FM moved in here. I've been on the radio here a couple of times talking about my movie. The new police station moved down to near Logan Gardens, just off Jacaranda Avenue, which is that way. Logan Art Gallery. This was opened in 1995. However, the building is a fair bit older. It was originally the council offices for the northern end of Albertshire, and also for a while it was a library. But today it's the lovely art gallery. Just behind the art gallery here is another time capsule. This one was buried 1998. Commemorates the 120th anniversary of Albert and Logan News. I wonder if the time capsule that was buried outside of Coles at Woodridge Plaza in 1991 is the same one as this one, and that it was moved up here in 1998. So it could be the same time capsule. I mean, why would you have 2 time capsules within 200 metres of each other? Maybe. Anyway, time capsule. I don't know when they're going to open it though. Yeah, doesn't say when they're going to open it. Just walking around here in the Trinder Park area, it's immediately apparent just how many houses have been pulled down because of the faster train line straightening the train tracks. It's going to come through this area. You see, back in the 19th century when the Beenleigh line was put through, the train line was very windy, and that was because trains were not very fast back then, and it was easier to go around hills and skirt around marshlands and things because it was expensive to build across them or smash your way through them. So the train line was very, very windy, and we still have that bendy, windy train track today, although over the decades, over many years, it has gradually been straightened out. But here at Trinder Park, this is an area where there are still a couple of big bends, and that's what they're doing, straightening it out. And see, trains have gotten faster as well over time, and they're so fast now. There's so many more people living here that need to get between Brisbane and the Gold Coast, and of course with the Olympics, that's why they're putting it through here. Of course, it's terrible for the people who have lived here for many, many years, and they're losing their homes. And there we have it. There's the history of the development of Woodridge. But where's all the crime and violence that we associate with this area? Well, if you have to have some, here it is.